Hey guys, welcome back to another Bible Teaching Monday. We're going to continue our little series we're doing about questions about Jesus, things you may have wondered, questions you may have. But first, I want to give you my daily reminder. I only have one thing to do today. What is that? What is the one thing I have to do today? Follow Him. If I just follow Him, everything else works out. So let's jump into Mark chapter 11. Have you ever read something about Jesus and something that He did, and you thought to yourself, well, that just doesn't sound like Jesus. This doesn't sound like Him. That's not right. I think that's exactly how a lot of people believe and feel when they read the story about the fig tree. Jesus is hungry in Mark chapter 11. He walks up to a tree looking for fruit. It has no fruit. And so Jesus says, may no one ever eat a fruit of you again. He just curses the tree. And then the next day, the disciples find the tree completely withered. At first glance, that seems out of character, out of sorts. When you first read that, it seems like Jesus just became angry because he couldn't find breakfast in the morning. And that just doesn't seem like Jesus, does it? It just doesn't seem right. But that's really not what happened. The miracle was not about hunger. It wasn't about a tree even. It was about the condition of people's hearts. And that's what he's talking about. It has a message for all of us today. So if you want to read along in Mark chapter 11, verses 12 through 25, it's the story of the fig tree. They're walking through the valley, headed toward the city, and the tree is there's no fruit on it. Jesus curses it. They go into the city. Jesus turns over the money changer tables and weeps over the city. And they come back out and the tree's dead. Here's what Jesus is really doing in Mark chapter 11. He's teaching us through an object lesson. He did that a lot in order to make a point. Ordinary things. Jesus would use a coin, a shepherd, seeds, vineyards, and a fig tree. And he would use those things in order to teach a spiritual point. This was not a random outburst. Jesus wasn't hangry. He couldn't find breakfast, so he just got mad at the tree. This is a living illustration. And Mark even tells us in this story, Mark uses these words, it was not the season for figs. And so you read that and it confuses you because you think, well, if it's not the season for figs, why did Jesus get angry? But why did he expect fruit in the first place? Here's what's happening. In Israel, the fig trees would produce leaves, and then they would produce small buds of figs before the main harvest. And so when the leaves came, the little buds would be there. Well, this particular tree had the leaves, but it had no buds. It had no figs. It didn't have that first fruit. So when Jesus is cursing this tree, here's the point. It looked healthy, but it wasn't. It looked normal, but it wasn't. And so by cursing this tree and going through this whole episode, Jesus exposing a deeper problem. Because the fig tree represents empty religion. And this is what he means. Look what happens immediately after he curses the tree. He goes into the temple and he overturns the tables and the money changers. He drives people out, and then the next morning the people find the dead tree. So Mark intentionally puts these stories side by side. He juxtaposes these two stories. There's a cursing of the fig tree, and then there's a cleansing of the temple. Why did the Holy Spirit lead Mark to put them side by side? Because the nation was just like the tree. The nation looked spiritually healthy, but it wasn't. It was sick. They had a beautiful temple. They had religious leaders. They had crowds. They had ceremonies. But underneath all those leaves, there's very little genuine faith. It was just dead and worn out. So Jesus is not impressed by appearances. He doesn't care about those. He's never been impressed by appearances. This reminds me of the lesson we looked at last week. What did Jesus write in the sand? And in that story, Jesus exposed religious hypocrisy before he extended grace to a really broken lady. Here he exposes empty religion that looks alive, it looks healthy, but really it bears no fruit. Both passages, the writing in the sand and the fig tree, remind us that God looks beyond outward appearances and judges the heart. What's going on in the heart? God is interested in the heart, not all the outward stuff that we do, but what's in your heart? What are the motives behind what you do? And so God is looking for fruit. This is a point. The question isn't, do you look like a Christian? The question is your life producing spiritual fruit? There's a difference. I can look like it, but I can be producing no fruit. In other words, listen, it's possible to attend church. It's possible to serve on committees. It's possible to know Bible verses. It's possible to teach Sunday school. It's possible to preach sermons even, and still neglect the smaller things that matter. And this is what Jesus is pointing out in this story. So what really matters? Love, humility, obedience, compassion, a growing relationship with Jesus. Listen, leaves are easy. Those outward things, going to church and teaching classes and doing things, those are easy. The leaves are easy. The fruit takes time. The fruit takes patience. And Jesus is looking for fruit, not just looking for the leaves. And in this particular story, all he sees is the leaves. It's promising something, but there's nothing behind it. There's no substance behind it. And so what's the answer? The answer is faith. Peter's amazed because the tree is completely withered. And instead of talking about botany and gardening and plants, Jesus talks about faith. And here's what he says: have faith in God. Just have faith in God. Then he teaches about prayer and trust and forgiveness, because the answer to empty religion is not trying harder. The answer to empty religion is having a living relationship with God. And that's the point that Jesus is trying to drive home. Real faith produces real fruit. So let me ask you a really personal question today on this Monday morning. If Jesus examined your life today, if we just lay it all open and Jesus really examined your heart, is he going to find leaves or will he find fruit? Is he going to find religious activity or is he going to find a growing relationship with him? Which one are you manifesting today? Which one's coming out? Because God is not looking for perfect people. None of us are going to be perfect. God is looking for transformed people, people who have dedicated themselves to having a living relationship with him. Fruit doesn't earn salvation. Fruit reveals life. And so you want life behind your relationship. So the greatest lesson of the fig tree isn't that Jesus cursed the fig tree. The greatest lesson here is that he's lovingly warning us not to settle for appearances. He desires our hearts to truly know him. He wants us to dig deeper in our relationship, and he wants faith that produces fruit. That's what he's after. Thank you for watching today. If this Bible study encouraged you, then I want to invite you to continue this journey through our Questions About Jesus series. Every Monday we do this. If you can click the video on the top of your screen now, you can watch my last one, What Did Jesus Write in the Sand? It's another fascinating question from the life of Jesus. Or maybe better, why did he take the time to write in the sand? And it explains the difference between outward religion and genuine grace. And if you hadn't already, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. Every Monday, we dive deeper into a Bible study. Every Wednesday, we have Wisdom Wednesday. Every Friday, we have a Friday Faith Minute. And I would love for you to be a part of this. Until next time, God bless. Have a great day.